Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members and Mr. Chairman. My name is Laura Huffman, and I am the Texas State Director of the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy is a statewide nonprofit organization that uses a science-based approach to protect Texas's natural resources, and we have over 60,000 members here in Texas, as well as 30 different preserves. Thank you for having me here today to testify on behalf of HB4 and express our support for funding the state water plan. And thank you, Chairman Ritter, for leading these efforts, not only during this session, but for many, many years, and keeping this conversation front and center all over Texas. And many of you on the committee have done the same, and I think it's one of the reasons why we found ourselves here today having a positive discussion about funding the state water plan. We do support funding the state water plan, and I think probably one of the most important things I can say about it is this bill is written to make sure that the funding for the state water plan is responsible and cost-effective. It is nowhere near a blank check for the state water plan. And it does three things that I can see that make sure that when the state makes a decision to use rainy day fund, that decision is responsible and it will guarantee policy results. The first is the conservation set-aside. A minimum of 20% to make sure that we are prioritizing conservation is incredibly important. Every single person that has testified, regardless of whether their perspective was municipal, industrial, agricultural, has indicated the importance of conservation, and we think that's an important priority for the state. You also get at prioritization of the projects themselves in this bill and look for ways for the Texas Water Development Board, the Commission, and potentially even an advisory board to really be thoughtful about those projects in the state water plan that really are worthy of state funding. And finally, the bill recognizes that it's a new day in Texas. You're contemplating spending $2 billion on funding the state water plan, and that's worthy of modern approaches, including things like an advisory board and possibly even a look back sooner rather than later to make sure the policy goals are being achieved. So congratulations. The bill is robust, and it makes sure that your policy goals are all over it. As we move forward, I just want to comment on a couple of things based on a lot of the testimony that we've heard today and just work that we've done all over the state as a conservation organization. So the cities, I thought, had a really interesting perspective on conservation, and of course you do have the 20% set-aside sitting in this bill, but there are other opportunities to infuse the projects themselves with conservation goals. So there's a lot of discussion about how to structure the loan programs, the interest rates, the term of the notes, and even potential deferrals with the cities and what you do to make the uptake of those loan programs even stronger. One concept would be to create a premium loan program for those utilities in Texas that have low per capita water use, that have low water losses, those utilities that represent best practices. And those two metrics tell you that the utility is stretching its resource as far as it can. And when it comes to the state for an infrastructure project, it's because they've got to have access to additional water supplies. And creating a premium program that would incent cities through interest rates or deferrals or terms, I think on a 50-year water plan would help you build conservation into local utilities and allow them to customize programs that make sense to their customers. The other thing that I think is worth looking at is just innovation. There was a really interesting discussion on brackish water and the fact that natural gas companies that are fracking in Texas, many of them are moving to brackish water. We need to understand more about what that shift looks like because that frees up freshwater supplies for municipalities and agriculture. And as it relates to agriculture, I think it's important to make sure that we get the value proposition right. There was some really good testimony just now about what it is that Ag can and is doing in Texas, and it sounds as though in some places we need more information, but even just looking at the loan programs as they exist today, in the same way that cities are saying make sure that the interest rates and the terms are appropriate for cities, I think it's appropriate to take that same hard look at the agricultural sector. And I think ultimately, what we're trying to solve as a state is we are growing, and we're growing quickly. That's a sign of our success. And what this is trying to do is to optimize water amongst cities that are growing a growing agricultural sector, and a growing energy and industrial sector. And I know the one thing that we cannot afford to do is to pit one of those categorical users against another. Yeah. A growing state is going to want to eat, drink, and turn the lights on, and I see lots of room in this bill to make sure that each of those sectors is working hard on legitimate conservation efforts and making good contributions for a growing state. So with that, thank you, Chairman Ritter, for all the work that you've done. I appreciate it very much and happy to answer any questions that you might have.